What happens when one of Washington's most feared politicians tries to win with intimidation, only to be met with calm preparation and a confident smile? In a single committee hearing, a newcomer flipped the script, leaving a veteran humiliated, and set a new standard for political leadership. This wasn't just a clash, it was the moment American politics changed forever. When Cheney's shouting finally subsided, Crockett didn't rush to fill the silence. Instead, she let the room settle before speaking with the steady cadence of a trial lawyer. Calmly, she pointed out that while she had laid out her arguments methodically, Cheney had ignored the facts and resorted to attacking her qualifications and character, behavior Crockett framed as unprofessional rather than substantive. Then she pivoted, reminding the chamber that the American people deserve representatives willing to engage with evidence rather than throw temper tantrums when pressed for proof. The contrast between Cheney's emotional outburst and Crockett's composed, surgical response was undeniable, and as the chamber grew still, Crockett pressed further. She opened her notebook and delivered a 5-minute constitutional masterclass, citing landmark cases like United States versus Morrison, Williams versus Florida, and Brown versus Board of Education, not as jargon, but as plain language explanations of why the legislation stood on solid ground. Anticipating counterarguments and dismantling them before they could be raised, she transformed complex legal theory into something clear and relatable for both lawmakers and viewers at home. What Cheney had brought in volume, Crockett countered with evidence, and in that moment, it was clear evidence was winning. When Crockett closed her notebook, it wasn't just a gesture, it was punctuation, signaling that every citation and argument had been deployed with precision, and though the outcome was already clear, she punctuated it with a line that defined the exchange. Every constitutional concern had already been addressed by existing case law, the policies were constitutional, and they had been implemented successfully in multiple states without challenge. The clarity was devastating. Cheney's objections weren't merely rebutted, they were dismantled, and Crockett twisted the knife by inviting her opponent to raise actual legal arguments instead of shouting, reminding everyone that the American people had seen enough screaming for one day. The silence that followed was electric, with Cheney reduced to staring at the table as the committee sat in awkward stillness, smirks and discomfort betraying the weight of the moment. And though the chairman quickly called for recess, the damage was done. In under 20 minutes, Jasmine Crockett had dismantled one of Washington's most feared politicians with preparation, facts, and composure. The clips hit Twitter before the recess was official. A 15-second video of Cheney red-faced and finger-jabbing while Crockett smiled calmly went viral, #CrockettSmile trended, and memes flourished, from when you did the homework versus when you didn't to when someone tries to intimidate you but you came with receipts. Analysts and journalists weighed in, a Republican strategist conceding it was a masterclass, a Democratic commentator declaring Crockett the future of the party, and by evening, CNN was calling it the political takedown of the year, while even conservative outlets couldn't spin it, with headlines bluntly noting Cheney's collapse. The story spread internationally, with a British paper dubbing it American Politicians' Meltdown Goes Global. And in a single day, what had been Cheney's outburst became her PR catastrophe, and Crockett's rocket launch. By the next morning, the confrontation wasn't just trending, it was leading headlines across America, with major networks looping the moment Crockett calmly asked, "Are you finished?" while Cheney seethed. Cable shows dissected the exchange like a prize fight, commentators hailing Crockett's performance as a surgical dismantling and a lesson in leadership under pressure, even as conservative pundits admitted Cheney came off unhinged. A Sunday talk show split-screened Crockett's quiet precision against Cheney's red-faced eruption, the host summing it up bluntly. One looked like a leader. The other looked like a liability. Print media piled on, with the New York Times marveling at the role reversal between the seasoned veteran and the newcomer who looked more professional, while international outlets framed it as a study in contrasting leadership styles. The Guardian ran calm smile, political storm. German coverage emphasized discipline versus chaos, and a French paper dubbed Crockett's composure a model for modern diplomacy. By week's end, Crockett's calm smile was everywhere, from late-night comedy to viral memes, cementing the moment as more than a spat, but a defining political shift. For Cheney, however, the fallout was brutal. Within 24 hours, Republican strategists were scrambling, swing district ads spliced her outburst against Crockett's calm rebuttals, and allies quietly distanced themselves. Donors postponed fundraisers, signaling fading confidence, while even conservative editorials admitted bluntly, what we saw wasn't strength. It was a lack of discipline. The damage was undeniable. Cheney's once formidable reputation as an unflinching fighter was replaced by a new label, the Congresswoman who lost her cool on national television, and what began as a bad day quickly revealed itself as the beginning of her decline. While Cheney scrambled to contain the fallout, Jasmine Crockett's career trajectory skyrocketed overnight. Democratic leadership immediately recognized that a rising star had been born on live television, and in the days after the hearing, her office was swamped with media requests as networks that had never booked her before, CNN, MSNBC, even Sunday shows, suddenly competed for her time. Her calm smile quickly became the symbol of a new Democratic brand, sharp, professional, and unshaken under fire. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee capitalized immediately, blasting fundraising emails with Crockett's photo and subject lines like "This is how you win," which sparked a flood of small-dollar donations accompanied by messages such as "Keep smiling and fighting" and "Thank you for showing them how it's done." Behind the scenes, party leaders began grooming her for bigger roles, securing her spots on high-profile committees, pulling her into strategy meetings usually reserved for senior members, and tapping her as a surrogate on national television. The appeal was undeniable. A self-made civil rights lawyer without a dynasty name who had calmly dismantled one of the GOP's most feared figures. As one commentator put it, Cheney had the resume. Crockett had the receipts. In just a week, she had gone from little-known freshman to one of the most talked-about Democrats in the country. But the Crockett-Cheney clash grew into more than a viral clip. It became a case study in power dynamics. For years, Washington had rewarded bluster, aggression, and seniority, and Cheney embodied that model. Crockett shattered it by proving that preparation trumps intimidation. Her methodical reliance on law, precedent, and evidence made Cheney's shouting look small, even childish. And the more Cheney raised her voice, the more Crockett's composure stood out. Professors began assigning the moment to students. Analysts reframed it as a generational shift from politics as performance to politics as professionalism. And even leadership coaches and business executives adopted it as a lesson in composure under fire. One op-ed captured it best. Crockett didn't just win an argument. She revealed a new standard for what leadership looks like in the 21st century: calm, informed, and immune to theatrics. The message resonated far beyond politics, showing that in any arena, the future doesn't belong to the loudest voice in the room, but to the most prepared. Months after the confrontation, the moment had taken on a life of its own. What began as a heated committee exchange had evolved into something larger, a symbol of how to lead under pressure. In politics, Crockett's reputation soared. She became the face of a new generation of leaders, sharp, unflappable, and fluent in both law and plain speech. Young lawmakers studied her style, while senior figures, even across the aisle, quietly admitted she had set a new bar for how hearings would be remembered in the digital age. But the legacy didn't stop in Washington. Universities added the clash to syllabi on communication, leadership, and political science, with students dissecting her measured tone, methodical evidence, and refusal to take the bait of anger. Corporate trainers used the Crockett smile as shorthand for handling conflict, teaching employees to meet hostility with calm facts and steady confidence. In women's leadership circles, the clip became essential viewing, a reminder that victory doesn't require shouting, only preparation, poise, and letting the work speak louder than tempers. Even the phrase itself, the Crockett smile, entered mainstream vocabulary, applied to moments far beyond politics. A student facing a tough oral exam, a lawyer standing firm against hostile counsel, or an employee navigating an aggressive client. Cheney, unfortunately, became the cautionary tale. Crockett became the model. And together, their clash carved a permanent lesson into America's cultural memory. True leadership isn't about being the loudest in the room. It's about being the calmest, the most prepared, and the most unshakable. What millions witnessed wasn't just a clash of personalities but of eras. The old playbook of intimidation against a new model built on composure, credibility, and substance. Crockett didn't just win an exchange. She redefined the rules, proving that in an age where every moment can go viral, silence, facts, and a steady smile speak louder than any outburst ever could.